for joining me and helping me go through this test run. All right. So what I'm going to be doing this evening is giving a presentation that I had used previously in the recent American Chemical Society meeting. So the focus is really going to be on science communication. So what I'll be doing is first and foremost discussing motivations for using social media as a form of science in order to conduct science communication. I will be showing some examples of how professionals in STEM and medicine use social media and provide some tips for folks who are just getting started. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Mojarad, and I'm currently on the faculty at the University of Southern California. I currently hold an appointment in the Viterbi School of Engineering and previously held a dual faculty appointment with the School of Medicine. Prior to joining USC, I was at Caltech, where I was teaching a course called Social Media for Scientists within the Chemistry and Chemical Engineering department. My background is in psychology and communications. And so my focus on social media really began 5 years ago when I started to teach and develop this course, Social Media for Scientists. And since then, it's been really fascinating to see how this whole field has developed and really changed over time, because 5 years ago, it seemed as though some folks were on social media and using it for science communication, but now it's almost as if it's becoming a requirement. We're not quite there yet, but more and more we're seeing folks from different fields are using this technology in a professional capacity. And in the context of everything that's happening in 2020, it should come as no surprise that social media use has increased substantially. And so, as you can see here, majority of the population is spending upwards of an hour per day on social media. And for folks who are joining us from Twitter, that should come as no surprise, because it seems like many people are becoming much more active and really leaning on this technology in ways that we simply weren't doing so before the pandemic. And oftentimes in science communication, we talk about the fact that America's confidence in science is relatively low, but in fact, Pew Research Center has been looking at this over recent years, and they found that trust in scientists and medical scientists is actually increasing over time. And as you can see from this graph, it's increasing from, it was 76% to 86% for scientists, and then medical scientists 84 to 87% from 2016 to 2019. So I'm often asked, how is it that scientists are using social media to communicate? And I'm going to show you a few different examples. This is Professor Derricott, who I found recently. He's a professor of chemistry at Morehouse, and I absolutely love his page. If you are interested in learning anything about chemistry, he is the person to go to on YouTube. So I'm going to play you a quick clip. So bringing education in an open access format is something we're seeing more and more in 2020 especially. So you can learn just about anything on YouTube. In fact, when I give a freshman lecture every year at USC, I often ask students, what's the most interesting thing that you've learned about? And so far to date, I had one student say that he had learned how to drive stick shift through YouTube. So you can literally learn anything and everything through this platform. Um, on Twitter, we've seen all sorts of examples of how science communication can occur. This is someone who I found really fascinating. Her name is Joalda, and she is a PhD student at the University of Chicago. This is a fantastic thread. I encourage you to take down her handle and follow her, because what I loved about this thread in particular is she did a combination of science communication and she made it relevant to things that people would identify. So here you're seeing Matt Damon, and in each of the tweets that she had in this thread, she really related it to things that a general audience, a non-scientific audience would understand. And debunking misinformation has become almost necessary at this point on every single platform. So there are scientists, medical professionals who are dedicating their entire social media presence to doing this. One person in particular that I really like on Facebook and Instagram is social media advocate, Food Science Babe. So this is an example of her debunking the claims that came from somebody about the alleged properties of essential oils, which seems to be a trend that just won't die at this point. But she does a really great job of breaking down all of the misinformation and explaining why it is false. So if you are new to social media, here is some guidance and some tips on how to get started. I think that most of the people that I work with do have some form of activity on social media. It's just not necessarily in a professional capacity or to be conducting science communication. So this is really guidelines and approaches for that audience. First and foremost, I think it's important to pick a platform that's going to be matching your communication style. Pick one and do it well. Oftentimes, I'll meet with people and they will try to overextend themselves and be active on every single platform. But if your entire job isn't dedicated to being a social media influencer, you're going to burn out very quickly. So pick one and figure out which one fits your communication style. So I'm going to go through a few examples to hopefully be able to help you fine tune and figure out which platform would be right for you. Instagram is a great one if you're looking to target younger audiences. Over half of their global users are under the age of 34, and a majority of which are between the age of 18 and 24. This is a really great platform to build a professional brand if you're looking to be targeting a general audience. But not only that, you have to think about what your style is, because Instagram is very image focused. So if you're the type of person who likes to be taking a lot of pictures, having things that are carefully curated, then Instagram would be a great presence for you. As in terms of science communication, some of the best pieces that I've seen have coupled these photos with a really compelling narrative. So there's opportunity to have some storytelling with this as well. And so Marsha Cripps is one person who I think is doing an excellent job of using Instagram. I really like her presence because it really captures this mix of both personal and professional. So you get the sense of who she is and what her passions are in terms of science, but then what she's like outside of being a scientist. And so I think that more often, regardless of which platform you decide to go with, you really want to think about what mix you can do with showing who you are outside of your professional capacity and who you are as a person. Because overwhelmingly, people are looking to identify with people versus concepts. So if you can come across as being a trusted source of information, then people are going to trust the information that you're sharing. So I encourage folks, especially now in 2020, to be thinking about the ways that they can really couple personal and professional. YouTube, I have to say, there's no better time than now to be creating a YouTube page. It's the most widely used platform, and 70% of adults are using YouTube in some capacity. So if you are stuck at home and you are needing to find a new hobby, I highly, highly encourage people to be creating a YouTube presence. We need more scientific um, content and medical content on there that's high quality. And so if there's anything I can do to help people get them online and testing out different things like I'm currently doing on YouTube Live, please feel free to ping me. I'm happy to help you. Here's a video of mine. So what's great about YouTube, in contrast to Instagram, if you are somebody who would prefer not to touch up photos or have this very carefully crafted image, YouTube is great because it doesn't need to be high quality in order to be effective. In fact, people are looking for things that can be relatable. So if it doesn't look like it's high production, that's going to be okay. There's actually research to back this as well. Twitter really caters to a specific audience. And so if you're looking to build a professional network and connect with journalists and things like that, then this is going to be an excellent platform for you. Only 22% of Americans are using Twitter, but even though it might seem low, people do have their eyes on what's happening on Twitter. It's going to be something that's widely used by the academic and medical community. So it's unusual actually to hear that academics aren't active on this platform. So I highly encourage people to use Twitter. I'm biased, it happens to be my favorite platform, but yeah. Here are a few different ways that folks in chemistry and chemical engineering are using this. Bottom left, this is a laboratory that is putting out a call for applications for a fully funded postdoc position. Top left, this is a very animated video where we're seeing some sort of something going on in the lab. And I think these types of videos are great. They really capture your audience's attention. People want to know more about what's going on. And top right, even though this is coming from a journal, more often than not, we're seeing academics who are posting their publications via Twitter. There's been a whole body of research that has been growing around whether or not this increases citations, downloads, and things like that. The research is, more research in this area needs to be occurring because across the board, there's no consensus on this, but field specific, there has been some interesting research that has come out and indicated that posting your articles on Twitter can increase citation. So interesting stuff. One thing that I see, especially with new users, and when I'm doing consulting with new users especially, one of the biggest things that they overlook is that the importance of filling out your profile information. If you are a new user just getting started conducting science communication, highly, highly, highly encourage you to fill out every aspect of your profile because people want to know who you are and what you have to offer. So let's take a look at an example. This is Science Sam, and I love what she does on each of the social media platforms she's active on because she fills out the information, but provides very unique content to each platform. So as you can see here, she's got her username, and this is something that's going to be consistent between each of her different, her presence on each platform. But her profile photo is an image of her. This is important as well. You want people to know what you look like. And then her bio, pay attention to this because in the next two slides, you're going to see how this information changes just a bit, her wording, in a way that people would want to follow her on each of the different platforms where she's active. Not only that, she's sharing links that are going to be relevant. So this is to her Instagram page. Cross-platform promotion is important. And then she also has her website here with other links. This is her Instagram profile. And as I had said, to pay attention to the bio section, I'm just going to flip back real quick. She says here, stem cell biologist and science communicator. Here it's neuroscientist, and science storyteller. So you can see they're both still accurate, but they're a little bit different. And I think that if you are going to be building a presence on multiple platforms and you have that experience under your belt, then thinking about little ways like this and how you can engage an audience and keep them engaged on multiple platforms is going to be really important. But once again, there's a clear image of her, consistency with usernames across platforms, and just really filling in everything that you can here. And finally, her YouTube page. Also, we see a little bit of narrative in the description, and it really sets the context for this, and it sets the expectations for the audience. So you want to use those descriptions in a very strategic way so that you can set up your audience's expectations in each and every platform. Determining your goals and audience can be really tough if you're just getting started. So don't worry if it changes over time, because it probably will. I think that setting different goals and defining an audience initially is a really good place to start, because oftentimes if you don't have an audience just yet, you're going to feel like you're howling into the void. So by defining an audience and determining these goals, it's going to keep your messaging more strategic and on brand. So here are some of the goals that I typically recommend that people think about when they're just getting started. I always encourage folks to be a little bit selfish too. You want to be putting out things that are going to impact your audience, but you also want to be thinking about what you can gain from the experience. So if conducting social media-based science communication is something that can improve communication, that is a lofty goal. And not only that, it can also influence and expand your network. And so these are things that can really play into and help motivate you to be conducting science communication, be consistent with your platform. Other concepts are engaging science enthusiasts, educating others, building a professional brand, and sharing your research. In terms of audience, this is something that comes up all the time. Oftentimes people will think about it as a technical audience and then a non-technical audience, but you really want to think a little bit deeper than that, because your messaging will change significantly based on who you decide to micro-target with that. There's a big difference between saying that you want to be putting out information for colleagues versus putting out information for kids and adults. So really go through and think about what your goals are, who your audience is, why you want to be contacting them, and why they should care. And thinking about those concepts, you'll really be able to fine-tune your message accordingly. And finally, this is a really tough one, I think, for people, and experimenting and finding your voice. Oftentimes when I am working with people one-on-one, they say, well, you have this massive presence, and of course, you know, I want to get there. But what they don't realize is we all started somewhere. We all started with 0 followers, and we only got to the point where we are today by experimenting and testing things out and not being afraid. So I really encourage folks who are new to social media, new to science communication, to be bold. Try things while your audience is super small. You can experiment, and you actually have an advantage to those of us who have a larger platform, because we are at the stage where we can't do the things that you can do now. So figuring out what it is you want to share, how you want to share it, and being authentic to who you are, is really going to be part of the process, and it should be fun. So I hope that this has been interesting for folks. thank you for everybody who has tuned in via YouTube Live. Really appreciate it. You're actually helping me out a lot because I want to see what this whole chat function looks like now that I'm done. So, wow, this is super active. This is amazing. Let me see. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for attending. I am going to turn off live, but I will be responding to questions if I can in YouTube, but if not, I'll be on Twitter. So thank you so much for attending.